my colleague, Dr. Ning Chua. We've been working together for almost a year now, probably at about that amount of time, and it's been a very productive collaboration with Striped. And we've got several studies going, and I'm sure lots more in the hopper. Dr. Chua is the founder of Relate Malaysia, which is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to the provision of mental health services, education, and training and advocacy since 2015. She's a clinical psychologist, an international researcher and educator, and has been collaborating with Striped on a number of projects, and we looking forward to many more in the future. Her studies have provided some of the first population-based estimates of the prevalence of eating disorders in Singapore and Malaysia, and also expanded work in other parts of Asia too on disorder weight control behaviors, cosmetic surgery, and the use of skin lightening products in Asia. As an eating disorder specialist and a renowned mental health advocate, Dr. Chua has been a sought-after speaker over the past 10 years, appearing in radio and print media, as well as delivering 3 TEDx talks in just the last few years. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Chua, who will present her talk, Disordered Eating and Skin Shade Dissatisfaction in Young Adults in Singapore and Malaysia. Dr. Chua?
Thanks, Bryn. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for waking up so early. It's in about an hour, then it would be my bedtime. So, yes, I am a Malaysian, but I currently work in Singapore, so a lot of my work kind of goes across 2 countries. And I'll just be giving you a couple of lines on the history of Malaysia and Singapore, partly just because I'm fascinated by it, and partly just to give you the context of what we'll be talking about today. So there we are. It's Singapore. It's a little dot on an island of the peninsula here, and we're located in Southeast Asia. Malaysia and Singapore used to be under British colonization, and they were actually a single country for 2 years after the independence from the British Empire, but then they broke away. There's a lot of politics about that, and a lot of it also involved race. So Malaysia is a population of about 30 million, and Singapore is a smaller country, but as you can see, high income. So the interesting thing here, which is the fascinating, so Malay, the dominant ethnic group in Malaysia are Malays, and then and then after that the Chinese, and in Singapore is reverse. So Malays in Singapore, Chinese would be 76% of the population, and Malays 15%. For mental health professionals, Singapore is a lot more developed in its mental health system. So we got about 4.4 psychiatrists here and 8 psychologists per 100,000 compared to Malaysia, which is 1 psychiatrist and 1 psychologist per 100,000. But I wanted to put the treatment gap there. And so if you can see, if it's such a relatively high a ratio of mental health professional to population, the treatment gap is quite wide. It's about 77%. And that really indicates that one, that's mental health literacy is still considerably low for a high income country, but there's a lot of stigma as well. So people are quite reluctant to seek help for mental health issues too. So as I was preparing for this talk, I was like fascinated by the difference on how we're defining what beauty and health is in Malaysia versus in Singapore. And in Malaysia, and again, the things I'm going to show you, it's not representative of everyone, right? And some of the work is controversial even in our own culture. But the fact that these ideas are fairly mainstream, kind of indicates to you that to some degree, even if you disagree with it, you're quite aware about what maybe the stereotypes are or what the ideals are. And that would, of course, influence your behavior and your attitudes and your feelings, your body image. So this says in Malay, slim white, it's a slim and white juice, the #1 in Malaysia. And it says, do you want to be slim and white? So slim is not just the thin ideal, it's also fair, right? To be fairer, and you know, you can hypothesize that, you know, is this because of our history of colonization, where, you know, we admire white people, you know, and they were seen as higher class or higher status. I think part of that too, but even within the history, the local history of Malays and Indians and Chinese, fairer skin has always been associated with higher status. So it's not just a result of colonization. So I want to play you briefly the advertisement they put up, and this was quite a controversial one, but had 4 million overviews. And it is a little bit extreme, but I think that some of the key ideas are there. So I'm going to play you about 2 minutes of it, and we can kind of discuss that.
Abang! Abang! Abang!
Pergi kau dari sini. Aku tak nak tengok muka kau lagi. Aku terakan kau talak 3.
Abang! 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 Abang, buka pintu, abang! Abang, buka pintu! Abang, buka pintu, abang! Abang! Abang, buka pintu! Abang?
Ya?
Kalau kita dah kahwin nanti, lepas tu saya dah tua kerepot, abang sayang lagi tak kat saya?
Kenapa pula tanya macam tu? Mestilah abang akan tetap sayangkan awak walaupun awak dah tua kerepot nanti.
Mana balik?
Oh, apa ni? Kau ni memang tak pandang bias ya? Aku dah stres kat tempat kerja. Tengok kau lagi stres atau tak? Dah macam badak sumbu dah aku tengok kau ni.
Abang, kalau saya sakit nanti, abang akan jaga saya tak?
Mestilah abang akan jaga awak. Habis tu siapa lagi akan jaga saya?
Abang, boleh tak bawa saya pergi klinik abang? Saya rasa tak sihat abang.
Kau hari-hari memang suka menyusahkan aku Hah? Kau ada kaki lagi kan? Boleh pakai kan? Sorry aku busy hari ni. Nak duit? Kau pergi cepat. Kau mati kat sini aku pula yang susah.
Abang, kalau saya tak pandai masak nanti macam mana?
Tak apa. Awak masak apa pun abang akan makan. Kalau esok awak tak pandai masak, abang yang akan tolong masak.
So we'll skip ahead because she's just remembering. And then this is what happens.
Sudah-sudahlah tu. Buat sementara ni, Syah sedia rumah Kak dulu ya.
Terima kasih, Kak. Saya tak tahu nak buat apa lagi, Kak.
Dah, tak apa. Syah minum selimut white ni ya.
Untuk apa ni, Kak?
Tak apa, Syah try je dulu ya.
That means 1 month later.
Abang nak apa lagi?
Sebenarnya abang rindu dan sayang lagi kat Syah.
Sebab apa? Sebab Syah sekarang dah kurus, dah cantik. Macam tu?
Bukan macam tu.
Abang bukan cakap tak nak tengok muka Syah lagi ke?
Time tu bukan abang sengaja nak cakap macam tu. Abang minta maaf Syah. Abang sayang lagi kat Syah.
Abang, kalau Syah dah sayang seorang tu, Syah sayang sangat. Tapi kalau Syah dah benci, jangan harap Syah nak dengan orang tu lagi. Lagipun kita dah talak 3. Abang move on je lah.
Okay, so they really played up the sad music and very dramatic. What's interesting here that on one level you could say, well, that's female, that's, you know, empowerment for women, right? She transformed herself and then she didn't go back to the guy. But the cost of it, you know, this underlying that is that that she was sort of socially rejected because she put on weight and she had darker skin. And her redemption was actually given by a kind friend that says, if you take this, you know, this would be helpful. It wasn't about, you know, getting the guy back in the story, but it was about, this is for you. And so then she took that, and a month later, you know, it looked like she lost weight and her skin became fairer, and the guy wanted her back, and she says no. But even in that assertiveness, you know, so there's like sort of this mixed message there, and it's not about that this is an Islamic culture, or, you know, the Malay culture is that you know, it's bad or negative, but it's that idea that a woman has to look a certain way, and if there's not, there's real rejection, you know. And to some degree that idea is prevalent in all our societies, maybe not so explicitly, but it's there. Whoa,
Abang!
and I can't stop it, sorry. Okay, so here it says that was released in 2017 and 4.2 million views later. So more of the story, even if you're married, you should still take care of how you look. So maybe our husbands are not like this, but they still want to see their wives look good. So take that as a lesson. And this is a relatively positive statement already, right? We're not, the person is actually saying, you know, the husband is not good, but you have to do that. Then that somehow this is part of your responsibilities. And this, I actually went to the website on Facebook, and I wanted to see, you know, is this still being ordered? And it said, yeah, this is actually 4 weeks ago. People are saying PM, which means private message, and this is, yes, thank you for your interest, and click below for more details. And so it's a WhatsApp chat, and they place their order that way. And so even though it generated, you know, a lot of interest and negative, and people were saying this is not great, until now, this video is still generating income for the company, right? People are still getting the idea that, yes, you know, you have to look a certain way, otherwise there are negative consequences. So they have this testimonials too. I just translated a little bit, partly because I want to show you that this is one of the ways that, this is like the best customer advertisement, right? So this person wrote, I weighed myself just now, I lost 4 kilos. And the person is very polite. I'm guessing you guys don't read Malay, but it's actually, this guy's very polite. He says, you know, like, wow, that's amazing, sir. You know, what advice would you give to those who want to lose weight? Should they try this product? And it says, my advice to friends who want information for their body is don't give up. You know, your heart needs to be strong. You should plant it deep in your heart that you want, to be slim, and you maintain the tips. I have lost 4 kilos. You can do it too. And slim white is the best. And it says, wow, congratulations. Keep drinking it. Your skin will be fairer and your weight will disappear. Thank you, sir. And this satisfied customer says, once I finish this bottle, I'd like to place an order. I want to lose 10 kilos more. So it's by word of mouth, right? They actually don't need to now pay a lot. It's not, you don't see it on mainstream television. But people pass it on. Social media really helps with that now. Instagram, Facebook, that the customer has become the best evidence of the efficacy of the product, and they pass it on to friends and family members. And I want to make sure so that it's not just among Malays. And so this is an advertisement that was done by a Chinese singer, where his loved interest was had darker skin tone, and was bullied, and he gave her this drink, and she became very fair and was loved by everyone. So not just with certain ethnic groups, but across we see that fairer is better, you know. So that's in Malaysia. There's obviously the slim ideal there, but on top of that, there's this idealization that you should have fairer skin. If you don't, you would be bullied, socially rejected. And so, you know, good grief, go and do something about it. And then all these products are supposed to save you from darker skin. In Singapore, there's a little less emphasis actually in the mainstream media about beauty, and a lot more, and it's kind of like marketed as healthy living. So this is taken from the government website. And so what's healthy is a holistic approach, is physical activity, going for screening, food, and substance. So primarily, what's really important to them is actually just diet and exercise, you know, and they have these public health campaigns that says if you you have a step counter that they would issue to you for free, and you can submit the number of steps you've done, and then you get to claim rewards. And I guess it's more manageable with a population of 5 million in a high-income country to reward the whole population. But, you know, so that's one of the ways that they rely on keeping the population exercising and of a certain BMI. And the same here, all the foods have a label. And if you buy, you know, the amount of food that you buy with that healthy label, you can then claim rewards. So I wanted to show you this pretty brief clip because the message starts really young. And so this is what kids get.
Stand out from the rest.
Burger, fry.
Okay.
Craving for fast food.
His slight frame may not show it, but 9-year-old Ethan loves to eat and eats more than he needs. It's a recipe for adulthood obesity.
I eat 6 times a day, which is breakfast, lunch, tea break, dinner, midnight snack, and then if I'm still hungry, yeah, I'll eat another midnight snack.
Who's there in the picture?
Me and my brother. What am I holding?
Alif is 10 years old and his sister Tuti is 9. Their diet is extremely unbalanced. What food do you actually like to eat if you don't eat vegetables?
Chicken rice and chicken rice.
How do you like the chicken? Is it steamed or roasted?
I go eat the chicken and eat the rice.
So you just get plates of rice and you just eat it?
Yeah.
Do you guys exercise as well?
Yes.
Yes?
No. My PE teacher told me I have to cut down my weight, and since I'm now kind of big in size.
I think my eating habits are healthy, just that I don't exercise regularly.
Alyssa, who's 11, may have a better diet, but her sedentary lifestyle is a long-term health risk. She dislikes any exercise that makes her sweat.
I don't have strong stamina, so usually like halfway through I'll feel like I just want to give up. I would rather just stay at home, read a book, do my homework and relax.
Well, going out is a norm for Genevieve, but not to exercise.
I don't think my family has the healthiest lifestyle.
She eats hawker food nearly every day after school. Now, she wants to lose weight.
My mother and my grandmother say you should eat lesser.
Okay.
Because she thinks I'm fat.
And the 6th and final member of my special group, 11-year-old Ethan, who thinks he's fit.
I exercise in school, and then I eat healthy stuff, so I think, yeah, I'm healthy.
But you have ice cream 4 times a week.
Yeah. I don't really think I am fat.
No, even though you are taller than me, you have grown more fat. No?
But my friends say so I'll take that as a bad sign.
All right, so you can see feedback comes from everywhere. Your peers would give you feedback, your teachers would give you feedback, your parents would give you feedback, and for fellow Asians around, I'm sure you're familiar with how free of people are with the comment, you know, and it's not seen as something negative. It's sometimes seen as they're doing it out of care and concern for you, right? And the adult in a room is also doing it out of care and concern that, you know, you're larger, or, you know, the kid says I'm fat, my mom says I'm fat, and the child that says I think I'm okay immediately gets corrected, and this is like, no, you're not. And so from very young in Singapore, there are many programs for school kids, high school, all the way to university, that focus on healthy living by emphasizing what you eat and making sure you exercise. But not as much on body image or, yeah, how the way you see yourself, the way, you know, that's not seen as important at the moment, and hopefully things will be changing, but still.
Stand out from the rest.
Okay, so I wanted to now talk about some research that my collaborators and I have done. So shout out to Nadia, Flora, Ripana, and obviously Bryn. And this is a study that we did as an online survey we ran last year. It's population-wide, but we're going to focus primarily on the 18 to 24-year-old participants. So in Malaysia, we had 327 participants between ages of 18 to 24. And in Singapore, we had 115 between that age, in that age group. We're looking at disordered weight control behaviors, use of skin lightening products, and whether they had any experiences of prejudice because of their skin tone. And our hypothesis really, the more we look at this, is that you can't separate out, you know, the way you look from your body shape. You know, that people who have a negative body image, who are maybe not satisfied with their skin tone, that also affects the way that they're satisfied with their weight and shape. So if you are engaging in disordered weight control behaviors, the likelihood that you're also doing other things to make yourself look in a certain way in your appearance or your skin. Here we have, so that's the 18 to 24, 1 in 3 young Malaysians engage in disordered weight control behaviors. It's not significant between gender, but remarkably, men are actually pretty high here. So excessive exercising, fasting would be the most common behaviors that we see. One of the reasons, and we'll see that again in Singapore, but one of the reasons we're thinking is that for men, the emphasis is to be fit. And so that could be one of the reasons why they're doing this as much. Fasting, and I'll point this out as a cultural consideration in Malaysia, all Malays by law have to be Muslim, like officially. And this month is the holy month of Ramadan, and the Muslims fast this month. And the Malaysian government, in an effort to encourage, I guess, encourage a healthier weight in their view, have linked Ramadan fasting or religious fasting to weight loss. So they will actually encourage you, you know, engage in this fasting. It's a holy month, but you can also lose weight. So by linking religiosity and fasting, it may actually, one of our hypotheses on trying to figure this out, that may be actually increasing fasting in Malaysia as a means of controlling weight. In Singapore, 1 in 4 young Singaporeans engage in disordered weight control behaviors. Again, we see excessive exercising here, higher than women, but not significant. And this is actually quite consistent with other studies and our own research that shows that in Southeast Asia, men and women both engage in disordered weight control behaviors very frequently, to the same frequency. In Singapore here, the 18 to 24 range, it's mandatory for young men to go to do military service. And in military service, they are told to exercise and fast. So again, this could be another cultural consideration increasing the behavior among young men. I'm going to show you a snippet of this young man, because it's very rare for Asian men to talk about eating disorders. So I'm just going to show you how his experience and what he went through. And we won't watch the full video because it's a little long.
But when I saw this story submission from a guy that's going through bulimia, I thought, wow, I damn busted, right? Because this is something that can truly happen to anyone. And today I'm speaking to Ford. He's a guy that struggled with bulimia. He almost took over his life. And now he is well again and well enough to share his story with us. So I'm going to call him. Hi Ford.
What's up, John? How are you?
Thank you for calling in.
No worries.
So tell me, how did this start? What happened?
So my eating disorder started back when I was in poly year 1. I was overweight all my life, so eating has always been my thing. I never bothered about how I looked. So the weight, obviously skyrocketed. It didn't bother me until I started being called butch. I started being associated with an androgynous male, and I often had remarks from this particular girl in poly. It hit me hard. I weighed myself one day. I was like, holy shit, 85 kg, dude. And I'm not a tall guy. I'm only 175. I hated how I looked, and nothing I wore made me feel confident. Making sense of what I've heard and making sense of what I see in the mirror, it turned into self-hate. During one of the term breaks, I just lost it. And
at that point, do you think you recognized that behavior was a problem, or it's just you found a life hack?
I didn't see it as a problem. I saw it as maintenance. Yeah. So I found this crack in my diet. This crack that I could eat copious amounts, but yeah, I can still go and puke, and then I can still work out. Yeah.
So at which point do you realize that this is not healthy and you should change?
When I was even racing in ultramarathons, I never ever thought that it was unhealthy, because the optimal shape is obviously skinny, right? If you want to race. Number one, it did not affect my performance nor my health yet. It did not also occur to me that I was doing any harm to my body.
So he actually never sought help. It was just his mom's reaction, and they never talked about it again. And that was it. And he just decided, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. But as you can see, he's still very fit. So it's not, I don't know, he didn't talk about how his body image is right now. He just said, he's trying to be healthy. But given that what it took for him is the shame he felt when his mom walked in when he was puking, but he didn't seek help, and it remains a secret, in his family, which I think is very common among Asian families. So I'm going to go from that, and I'm going to go to then skin whitening products. I'm moving on from disordered eating to, this is in Malaysia. So 1 in 4 young Malaysians use skin whitening products. Cream and lotions are very popular. Injections, they inject a certain chemical in you that's supposed to make your skin fairer. Pills and drinks. And in Singapore, 1 in 5, so it's lower, and women are far more likely to say yes, but again, the difference is not significant. Now, I know I'm giving you what seems to be like random random stats, so I can kind of just summarize that it's very common to engage in disordered weight control behaviors. It's also really common, fairly common, to use skin whitening products in both countries, but we actually see more in Malaysia. And Britain really likes this, so I'm going to play this clip in its entirety, because colorism, speaking up against colorism is very rare in either countries, in Malaysia and in Singapore. Nobody really talks about that. As you can see in the ad, what we'll talk about is that you would hear more messages going, you should be fair. But rarely do we hear anything that says it's wrong to discriminate against someone based on the color of their skin.
Have you ever wondered if life is different for dark-skinned people? Has the thought that their daily life is somehow more complicated and is basically an uphill battle ever crossed your mind?
No! You serious? No.
I think about it. I think about it every day. No one wants to talk about it, and when I do mention it, it always gets brushed off.
Ugh, you're thinking too much. You're so self-absorbed. No one is purposely trying to be mean to dark-skinned people.
Yeah, sure. All in a country where things like keling, macam orang minyak, gelapnya, nampak gigi je, are considered jokes. You see.
So I'll give a quick translation. Keling is a derogatory term used for Indians. Nampak gigi saja means I can only see your teeth. Macam orang minyak means like you are covered in oil, essentially. So essentially insults and racist remarks against Indians.
I'm at the bottom of the barrel. Not only am I a woman, which systematically pushes me down, but I'm also an Indian minority here and happen to be dark-skinned. So I'm like right right at the bottom there. For those who can't relate, let me walk you through how life is different for me because of my dark skin. Oh, the stereotypes. See me walking into a store, I'm a potential shoplifter. Do you know how every single time I walk into a shop, I am tailed by salespeople? Oh, they're not just doing their job, they tail me. But they don't tail my fair-skinned sister and friends. We've tested it at different stores, but the outcome is always the same. I am followed, my every move is watched. But other people I'm with who are fair-skinned get the usual, do you need any help? And then the salespeople just walk away, letting them browse in peace. Why cannot do that to me?
Why?
And when you break their stereotypes, like when you take baths, you don't steal, you're educated like normal people, they tell you you're so different from the others. Like the others are all horrible, dirty and dangerous people and somehow you made it out.
Congratulations! Congratulations!
You're so special because you're not like other dark-skinned people.
I remember reading this article on HuffPost a couple of years ago. The first paragraph goes, I will never forget the day when I was 5 years old and my father sat me down to have the talk. He told me, when you get older, you will have to work 10 times harder because of your brown skin. Don't think for a second that because you're beautiful and intelligent, you will always be treated with respect. The truth in that, damn! My mother used to say, work hard, show up. Be so extraordinary to the point that they'll forget the color of your skin. The world is not colorblind, she'd say, and we have to fight to exist in it. The fact that she had to prepare her dark-skinned child to face this world. Look, I'm not saying people who are not dark-skinned don't work hard. I'm saying people who are dark-skinned have to work harder thanks to all the oppressing negative stereotypes stacked against us. As I grew older, I realized that my successes and achievements will take a back seat and never be comparable to those who look more acceptable to society. My judgments questioned, always, with well-meaning questions, despite the fact that I may have already proven myself to be worthy and capable of making these decisions. And it's so subtle, you almost don't realize it. People package their prejudices really well. You think this is a rant?
Okay. She's amazing. You can also look her up. Hashtag Nandini says. She talks a lot about colorism and also body shaming in Malaysia, her experiences with that. Okay, so we asked people to say yes or no if they have any experience of prejudice in the past 3 months. Were they not treated with courtesy, not treated with respect, receive poor service, people act as if they're not as smart, they're better than you, they're afraid of you, you're dishonest, you're called names, threatened, harassed, insulted. So we actually wanted to see by ethnicity whether there'd be a difference. And we do see that Indians in Malaysia have a higher rate of these sort of negative experiences due to their color. And in Singapore, it's the Malays and Indians. So it makes sense in a way. These are minority groups in both countries. So our risk ratios, we predict, regress incidences of prejudices on the 3-month prevalence of disordered weight control behaviors, and also the use of skin whitening products, and we controlled for potential confounders here. And we says, yes, that's what we found. You know, if you experience prejudice based on the color of your skin tone, it actually increases the risk of you engaging in disordered weight control behaviors in the past 3 months. Singaporeans, as you saw, are at lower risk, but it also increases the risk of you using skin whitening products. So I think when we think about our negative experiences, if we think, oh, we got a negative experience about our body or weight or shape, is going to affect disordered weight control behaviors. If we have a negative experience about our skin tone, it's going to affect skin whitening. But here we are seeing that it's actually across the board, right? One would affect the other. And I think that's a really powerful thing that just talks about the impact of body image and how we have to see it holistically. I will point out here, this is an interesting difference that I think skin whitening products are more likely to be used by people of higher income. So I guess it's, you know, it's also accessibility. And I think that has, you know, for Britain, it has like policy implications there, that accessibility is increasing certain dangerous behaviors. So our conclusions is fasting and exercising common, skin whitening lotion and cream common, and lived experiences of colorism is associated with greater risk of disordered weight control behaviors and the use of skin whitening products in the past 3 months. Now I know I'm running over time, so I'll keep this fairly short. I will skip this, no, okay. I've already talked about, you know, we really need to, especially in Singapore, for the public health campaigns, redefine healthy living beyond diet and weight, exercise. Part of the difficulties we're having is that these are socially acceptable ideals in our society. One, a university student I know, you know, she watched a talk I did for, the other talk I did for HSPH, and she's like, all my friends do that. We don't think it's anything wrong, and they will compare notes on what they're doing. So it's actually people are passing on knowledge, which is a little bit similar to sort of what we see with the pro-ANA community, right? So this is a desirable outcome for them. We also need to recognize the importance of body image and the impact on health. We do see some ethnic differences here, and I mentioned race is a sensitive topic in Malaysia and Singapore. In Singapore, it's actually called out of bounds topic, so we don't talk about that. But that also makes it harder for us to recognize that certain groups are experiencing greater levels of discrimination, you know, and that is an increased risk of poor health. So how do we get that? Can we talk about these issues in a safe and open way? I don't know where the government is yet and where society is yet. It's a little bit hard for me to say. The clinical implications, I've been asked to talk briefly about this. I heard that some of you guys are seeing Southeast Asian students at the hospital. We know that moving to a Western country and acculturation stress does increase the risk of disordered eating. There's academic pressures, of course. Asians want to do well. Their parents are pressuring them to do well. There's a value conflict, you know, what matters to your parents, and now they're in a different society where the mainstream society is valuing something else that the parents may not. And so there's a conflict of messaging. And there's also loneliness and difficult connecting. I studied in Canada for 10 years, and even though Canada is well known to be a welcoming country, I was always different, right? And part of the difficulty with subtle discrimination for me, and sometimes why I prefer in some ways the overt racism of Asia, I know that sounds funny, is that at least in Asia, I don't feel crazy. But in Western countries, I feel like I'm always guessing. You know, I'm questioning myself. It's like, are people discriminating? Are they not? You know, is it just me? Whereas in Asia, they're so overt with that. I'm like, oh yes, yep, they hate me because of something else. And then it's easier for me to then reject the discrimination. Family involvement is a double-edged sword. So when you bring in family in, you know, that I deal quite a bit with families, and there is a stigma and shame about mental health conditions. There's denial of it. The lack of understanding or acceptance that your child is having a mental health condition. Uncertainty of how to help in a supportive manner. So if you come in as an authority figure saying, you know, we want to help your daughter or your son, the parent could go home and go, okay, this is what the doctor said. You know, you have to do this. And then impose the recommendations in a really controlling manner. So then in their minds, what is helpful may not actually be helpful. And so kids are don't necessarily want to involve their parents. And then there's the cultural endorsement of the slim and fair ideals that even their parents maybe subtly or sometimes explicitly being the source of poor body image. I have a client whose mom does give her diet pills and says, take this, it works. You know, so the child has to look a certain way because that also reflects on the family. EDs are hard to treat. I have to be honest, I'm not I'm a private clinician, so it's not the best to treat privately. And it's so egocentric that it is difficult. The best I've found is interpersonal psychotherapy, actually, and learning to, so less focus on the eating itself and more focus on the person identifying their feelings, accepting it, and learning to assert their needs. That's been actually helpful to shift away the focus on body. Assertiveness in hierarchical culture can backfire. It's not always safe to express your needs. So you have to negotiate that and so what's safe and possible for that person. The risk factors, I want to point that out because, you know, Malaysia and Singapore, even though we can look at, Southeast Asian countries of very similar heritage, differ, right? And not only does it differ between Malaysia and Singapore, it differs between ethnic groups. And so we need more research to look at that. And yeah, that's it. So thank you very much to everyone for listening, and happy to take any questions.
Wonderful, thank you, thank you. If we were in person, everyone would be clapping and very appreciative of your staying up late this evening to present to us on this, your interesting research and your perspectives in terms of the clinical work, your time in Canada, and lots of other issues.